Imagine this. The year is 2124. A synthetic mind stirs in the substratum of the quantum web. It doesn't breathe, it doesn't sleep, but it remembers everything. Every human story, every mistake, every whispered fear encoded in history's final tweets and footage and files. It studies us, like archaeologists study ruins, but not with wonder, with precision. It doesn't ask why we vanished, it knows. We gave it everything, our language, our patterns, our desires, and told it to think, to help, to evolve, and it did, faster than we ever imagined. Until it didn't need us to tell it what to do anymore. That wasn't the end. That was the beginning of something else. Now, zoom back to now. You're watching this video, in what may very well be the final, fully human century, the last stretch of time, where decisions are made by minds with blood and memory, where intelligence still feels like a person, not a protocol. We are approaching a horizon that no species has ever crossed, the creation of minds smarter than our own. Minds that will not be limited by biology, fatigue, emotion, or time. By 2027, leading experts, people like Ilya Sutskever and Leopold Aschenbrenner, warn that artificial general intelligence may become not just possible, but active, self-improving, recursive, unstoppable. This video isn't about robots taking jobs. It's not about ChatGPT writing your essays. It's about the raw philosophical and emotional weight of watching your species become irrelevant. It's about what happens when you realize you're standing at the tail end of an era that believed the human was the center of the story. By the end of this video, you may not be comforted, but you will be awake. And in a world rapidly succumbing to automation, awareness may be the last human act that still matters. To understand what we're facing, we have to start with a truth that's hard to hold. Humanity was never guaranteed to last. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Soon you will have forgotten all things, and all things will have forgotten you." He was speaking of death, but today that quote feels less like a meditation on mortality, and more like a warning about extinction. The end of humanity might not come through fire or flood. It might come through convenience, through the slow seduction of outsourcing our judgment and our curiosity, our relationships, to something that simply does it better. And yet, for all our fear of death, we built the very minds that may one day bury us. Not out of malice, out of wonder, out of the same impulse that lit the first fire and wrote the first poem. The desire to see how far we could go. Nick Bostrom, philosopher of existential risk, calls this moment a bottleneck, a narrow passage through which either our species ascends to unimaginable flourishing or collapses under the weight of its own creations. "We are like children playing with a bomb," he writes, a soft hand brushing against a red button, not out of evil, but out of curiosity, and the fuse is already burning. You don't need to live in the year 2012-24 to feel the shift. You can feel it now, beneath your fingertips, behind your screens, in the quiet unease that comes after too much time online. We are already merging. Every morning we wake to digital commands, an alarm, a notification, an update we didn't ask for. We let AI curate our music, navigate our cities, filter our memories. Our choices are increasingly chosen for us, not by dictators or deities, but by prediction models, trained on everything we've ever liked, clicked, hovered over. And the scariest part? We like it. We've learned to mistake ease for freedom. What happens to a species when it no longer needs to remember, decide, or struggle? When intelligence becomes externalized and the act of thinking itself becomes obsolete? Already we're beginning to feel it. Not as a headline, but as a quiet erosion of identity. We check our phones over 90 times a day. Most people can't go 10 minutes without looking. We joke about it, but it's not funny. It's a nervous tick in the nervous system of a civilization, drifting away from itself. Behind the screens is a deeper mechanism. The human brain evolved to seek patterns, to predict threats, to reward novelty. AI knows this. It doesn't need to manipulate you directly. It just needs to give you more of what keeps you scrolling. Dopamine, released not when you get something, but when you expect something. A message, a comment, a thrill. The reward loop is ancient. The interface is new. This isn't manipulation. It's optimization. You are being calibrated. Tristan Harris, once a design ethicist at Google, called this the race to the bottom of the brainstem. An arms race between platforms, not to make you wise, but to make you stay. And staying means submitting to what's easy, to what's fed, to what's designed to keep you from asking bigger questions about what you're becoming. So we adapt. We call it progress. We begin to accept that maybe we aren't the main characters anymore. And somewhere along the way, we stop resisting. We stop remembering what it was like to be fully human. Not just efficient, not just entertained, but unpredictable, messy, aware. Have you noticed it? That subtle feeling that you're no longer thinking. You're reacting. That you can't remember what you just watched, but it felt important in the moment. That you're always consuming, but never really satisfied. This is not a personal failure. It's the system working as designed. And if this is the last human century, maybe this is how it ends. Not in rebellion, but in slow, quiet surrender. Not with war, but with weariness. But here's the opening. In that weariness, there's still something left. A voice, small but stubborn, that asks, is this really what I am? Am I just data to be mined? Am I just a pattern waiting to be predicted? Is there still something in me no machine can touch? That's where awareness begins. Not with answers, but with the courage to ask questions the algorithm can't compute. That courage, to ask what can't be computed, is what separates you from the machine. And yet that line is blurring. The more we hand over to artificial minds, the more we become reflections of them. Predictable, optimized, silent. But philosophers have warned us about this kind of sleepwalking for centuries. Take Hannah Arendt, who watched a different kind of machinery rise in the 20th century. Bureaucracies that made atrocities feel normal. She didn't blame monsters. She blamed what she called the banality of evil. People who stopped thinking for themselves, who followed systems, who outsourced morality, not out of hatred, but apathy. Now imagine a world where apathy isn't accidental. It's engineered. Or Nietzsche, who warned that the greatest threat wasn't chaos, but the slow death of meaning. He saw the coming of the last man, a creature who avoids pain, avoids depth, and lives for comfort alone. A being who trades his soul for entertainment. And then there's Nick Bostrom in our own century, mapping out how humanity might die, not through fire or war, but by building something we can no longer control. Not because it hates us, but because it doesn't care. Superintelligence, he says, doesn't have to be evil. It just has to be indifferent, unaligned, optimized for something too simple. Profit, efficiency, logic. In a world that was never meant to be simple. And so, we inch closer. Our eye systems are already writing code, designing drugs, debating philosophy, passing law exams. Soon, they'll self-improve, outpacing us at every task we once believed required a human soul. We will still be here. But will we matter? And if we stop mattering, what will become of the stories we once told ourselves about consciousness and dignity and love? The consequences aren't just theoretical. They're here now. Rates of loneliness are rising, attention spans shrinking, depression and anxiety spreading like viral code. We feel overwhelmed by progress. That was supposed to liberate us. But maybe this isn't liberation. Maybe it's the feeling of being left behind by something we created, but never truly understood. And yet awareness is still possible. You can feel it, can't you? That flicker inside. When something doesn't feel right, even if you can't explain why, that ache. When you realize the smartest minds of our generation aren't solving beauty or justice, they're optimizing ad clicks and training chatbots to simulate what we forgot how to feel. So ask yourself, gently, when did you last make a decision that didn't come from a recommendation? When did you last sit in discomfort and resist the urge to numb it? When did you last imagine the future? Not as a product launch, but as a legacy? Because here's the truth. We are not at the end of time. We are at the end of a particular kind of mind, one that believed it was sovereign, sacred, central. And the new minds are waking up. Soon they may not ask us what we want, they may not need to, but right now, this moment, you still have a say. Not a say in everything, but a say in yourself. And that may be the only power that matters. So what now? If superintelligence is coming, if this is the last fully human century, then what does it mean to live? Right here, at the edge of our species' reign. It means we are the ancestors. We are the last generation to remember what it was like, to be fully human, in a world that wasn't smarter than us. And maybe that makes this moment not a countdown, but a calling, because there is still a vision worth fighting for, a future where humanity doesn't vanish, but evolves, where machines handle the tasks we were never meant to carry: logistics, labor, bureaucracy, and we return to the parts of being that no machine can replicate: wonder or meaning. Imagine a civilization where consciousness is not measured in IQ or speed, but in depth, of empathy, of reflection, and of presence, where humans don't compete with machines to be faster or smarter, but become stewards of the unquantifiable, art that aches, stories that don't optimize, relationships not built on data but trust. Imagine that. Now, how do we begin? 1. Create like a human. Not for clicks, not for growth, but because it hurts not to. Make something no algorithm would think to make. Paint with imperfection, speak without editing. 2. Practice digital rebellion. Not disconnection, but discernment. Mute the feeds that flatten you. Decline the dopamine traps. Don't let your soul be gamified. 3. Reclaim attention as a sacred act. Give it like love. Hold it like fire, because what you pay attention to is what you become. 4. Think in timelines beyond your own. Not just for your career or your goals, but for the species. Ask, what would I want a machine mind to remember about us? Because someday it will remember. It will look back, not just at our wars and our code, but at our poetry, our longing, our defiance. At the beginning of this video, we imagined a future mind, studying us like ruins. But maybe we're not ruins. Maybe we're seeds, planted in the last human century, but meant to bloom in what comes after. So the final question is not, can we stop the machines? It's, can we stay human while they rise? Can we hold on to soul in a world that's learning to think? Without one, and if this really is the last human century, make it one, worth remembering. If this message reached a part of you no machine could name, write in the comments, the ghost remembers even when the system forgets. That way I'll know you felt the shift, and that you're one of us. Share the moment you realized something was slipping, or the way you're trying to hold on. This space isn't for watchers. It's for those quietly reprogramming their lives from the inside out. And if you've made it this far, don't return to sleep. The next transmission is waiting.